Okay. Everybody okay with that? Here we are. We're recording. Behave yourselves. Going down for posterity. Anyway, thank you, Jim. Jim is a board member of MindFreedom, and we have a couple. We got KK. I'm not sure who. I think we saw Al Gal's also MindFreedom. So anyway, Judi's Room is a joint effort between Love You Lead On, which is a disability rights organization, and I don't think Susan Fitzmaurice gets back on. I'm going to let her talk about that organization, and MindFreedom International, which I consider a human rights organization that focuses on the rights of people who get diagnosed with mental illness, psychiatric disabilities, the people who get into the behavioral health system. So, and just a little bit about Judi's Room, that the past year we've been focusing a lot on, we focus on disability rights issues, but we've focused a lot on advocates. And the beginning of the year and the end of last year, we focused on people who were no longer with us, but who had been real strong advocates. And a big thank you to Scott Cooper, who pulled together videos and did a great job so that we could have that conversation. And MindFreedom, as I said, is a human rights organization. I would say I call them our flagship programs. I don't know what to call them, but we have the Shield, which, Jim, you're here. Do you want to talk briefly about the Shield before we move
on? Well, it's funny. In fact, I'm scrambling right now. Yeah, the MindFreedom Shield is a mutual aid program. Mowing upset, I think I can hear. A mutual aid program where people sign up to be a member of the Shield, so that if they are ever facing being locked up or drugged against their will or electroshocked against their will, MindFreedom can put out an alert that goes out to everybody that's signed up, and other people tend to get them too. And everybody who signed up has agreed to do something on behalf of that person. And currently we have one going on right now. I'll put it in the chat, where David Russell in Minnesota is facing a court hearing on Monday to be electroshocked against his will. And so I'm actually pretty distracted trying to work that. It's been pretty interesting. So in the Chinese curse sense of the word. So I'm a little frazzled right now. So that's the MindFreedom Shield. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm going to put his alert in the chat.
And Jim, I thank you for taking up this effort. It is a lot of work, and we've been very successful in the Shield. And our MindFreedom President Al Gals is here as well, and some board members. But I think Susan Fitz is back with us. Susan, would you like to talk a little bit about Love You Lead On?
Sure. It came out of the COVID pandemic. There was an ADA celebration that was supposed to happen that couldn't happen. And so instead we had 90 days of Zoom events. And the most popular of the 90 days was one that was dedicated to Judi Chamberlin. And out of that, it was decided that we needed to do something on an ongoing basis. And so Judi's Room sort of evolved. Scott Cooper was a part of that evolution. And then Ron with MindFreedom became a part of that. And we just kept expanding it to, it's been the first Wednesday of each month for, I guess, must be about 3.5 years now. trying to think I'm not sure exactly when we started it now. It's been about 3 years, and it's it deals with all sorts of disability issues, but it's particularly welcoming to people who have psychosocial issues, which is not necessarily the case with most disability related events. So we're really trying to be attract a diverse audience amongst people with disabilities. And so Mind Freedom is a huge factor in that.
So thank you. I'm a latecomer to this. Okay, so Susan, were you able to get Patty? Is she get on, or did I?
I sent her an email. I haven't gotten a response yet.
Okay, so today we've picked a particularly interesting topic for Judy's room. I think they're all interesting, but this one is pretty interesting in that we're talking about people with disabilities who have interacted with police and probably in situations where this did not need to have happen, but ended up dead. And so we were going to start today with a video of a gentleman, young 35-year-old person who uh, whose father called for what we call a well check, and the police came, and you're going to see a video which is very disturbing because, in fact, he asked them to shoot him, and he really wasn't. He had a knife, but to his own throat. And so I want to warn you that this is a disturbing video because it's graphic. So if that's going to be hard for you, you can step away and then join us back for the conversation. But we want to start with that, and then I'm hoping we have a family member of someone, a, a young man who was had Down syndrome, and I'll let Susan Fitz talk about that when we get to that part of it, but who also was, for really no significant reason at all, put into a stronghold with the police and died as a result of that. And then we want to talk about this is going on around the country. And it's not just these two people, but these folks I feel are symbolic, and it's sad and horrifying. And one of the things that is even more horrifying to me is that there's relatively little coverage of these incidences, and usually they're pro-police. So without any further ado, I'd like to show the video. Are we ready for this? Let's see if I can do this.
Share sound.
I'm looking. Hold on.
Video is about 6 minutes long. So if you feel like it's something you can't handle, you might want to go get a cup of coffee and come back in 6 minutes.
Okay, that video. Advanced. Share. There we go. Let's see.
Share
Aloha.
sound is separate.
Aloha, what? I'm working on it. Do we have a video yet?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked a little while ago.
Well, while you're trying to get that going, I'll talk about another issue that comes up, which is slightly less disturbing, but could have ended much differently. So I was at an ADAPT action. If you don't know what ADAPT is, these are people who believe in direct action, where you often go in places that you're legally entitled to go to.
Good evening,
They
New
stay
Mexico.
longer than you're legally entitled to stay and protest. And so there was a woman who was there who was deaf. And the police had instructed her to stop going where she was, the direction she was going in. And she, of course, didn't hear them because she was deaf. And she kept moving away from the police, and they kept calling out to her. And when she didn't respond, they finally, several policemen came and dragged her down to the ground, handcuffed her, and started to drag her off. And because she was handcuffed, she couldn't sign and say, I'm deaf. I can't talk to you or tell her anything that's going on. She's not a person who speaks very articulately. And so those of us in the crowd, and I was one of them, we're shouting, she's deaf, she can't hear you, can't. And the police just ignored us completely. And she thankfully, eventually they did listen, and they were, so I say, more gentle with her, and let her up and took the handcuffs off and got a sign language interpreter. But the end result could have been much, much worse. And that's a risk that people with disabilities who have, communication difficulties face all the time, that they either may not hear instructions, or they may not understand instructions, or they may not be able to respond to instructions in the way that is considered acceptable. And so the response they get is not, our police as a whole are not trained how to deal with these issues. And we're going to talk about 2 cases, and probably more, where this has become more evident.
So one of the things we hope to do today is to talk about some of the solutions. And I'm going to try and hit this video and see if you all can see it and hear.
And good evening, New Mexico. Well, we all know when someone is sick, they often go looking for help, medicine, doctors, whatever it takes to get better.
But time and again, when someone has a mental illness, their calls for help go nowhere, or even worse. This is a map from the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office showing the South Valley is a hot spot for mental health calls. And once again, deputies are facing a lawsuit for how they handled a call for help there.
Ford investigator Ryan Laughlin takes us through a call for help that turned into a deadly shooting by sheriff's deputies. We want to warn you, this video might be difficult to watch.
So what are my options and what can I do?
A father trying to protect his son from himself.
He has mental issues.
Trusting law enforcement.
I raised my kids, including Jared, to respect law enforcement. I taught them that if you ever need help, call the police.
Jared, come out and speak with us.
Turned deadly.
You need to stop, Jared.
I heard, gunshots.
They made it very obvious at that time that it was us against them.
If it sounds similar, it's because it is. A person suffering a mental health crisis, and Bernalillo County deputies responding, and then killing a person who was holding a knife. That's what happened to both Alicia Lucero and Jared Romero. 4 Investigates has been following Lucero's case for years, but in Romero's case, his family says they tried to do everything right, even coming here asking deputies for help. But it didn't prevent them from killing a man in crisis.
This dead-end street in the South Valley is where Jared Romero ran out of road.
He's probably one of the best big brothers you could ask for.
He had been struggling.
My son was 35, but I still worry. You never stop worrying about your kids.
His father, Martin Romero, wonders about Army trauma. Jared was a medic.
He said, I had friends that were injured that I couldn't make a single mistake because it was their life that was in my hands.
Years after returning home, Jared started to believe people were after him.
I realized that this has to be mental illness.
Even Jared knew something wasn't right. and called his brother.
He said, I just don't want the guns in my household right now. If you can come get them, please, and we'll meet that at Caseman's.
Doctors diagnosed him with PTSD and delusional disorder, a psychotic condition blurring the lines between what's real and what's imagined. What happens next is a series of missed opportunities. Just like Alicia Lucero's case, Jared Romero's family was gravely concerned, and he reached out for help multiple times. On Halloween of 2022, he told deputies at his house he was having delusions, but didn't take deputies up on an offer to go to the hospital. 4 months later, in March, he went to the South Valley substation, trying to turn himself in for a crime deputies determined he imagined. The next day,
Hello, sir.
Jared's dad shows up to the sheriff's substation.
He was extremely cooperative, cordial. I mean, he's cooperative, he's not combative. He says, I have this and this going on. What are your concerns or thoughts right now?
Martin was worried Jared was off his meds.
We did the whole crisis intervention thing.
Deputies took Jared to a psychiatric hospital, putting him in the BCSO's database of people with mental illness.
He's in our system.
Anytime that our deputies go out there, anytime anybody has any contact with him, they'll be able to see who he is, what his diagnoses are, that he's harmless, he's given up all his weapons. They'll be able to see all this. If you have any problems at all, give us a call. Okay?
Bernalillo County Communications, this is Brittany. How may I help you?
Hey, Brittany, my name is Martin Romero.
Weeks later, Martin does just that. But the substation is closed on a Sunday, and his call gets rerouted.
So he stormed out of my house, slammed the door, and left. Went in his truck and left. So I just wanted for you guys to do a welfare check on him.
Okay, yeah, we can go check on him, make sure that he isn't actively trying to kill himself.
Sheriff's Office.
Dispatch sends Deputy Amber Cordero and Oscar Alvarez Ruiz to a welfare check. After more than 10 minutes, Jared emerges.
He has a knife to his throat. Jared, stop right there. Stop right there. Stop right there. Jared, stop. Stop, we're gonna shoot you. Stop. I want you to. You need to stop, Jared. I want you to shoot me. Stop right now.
Romero died, and the shooting investigation began. Deputy Cordero
I don't know how to explain, kind of like evil,
tells investigators something that never happened.
He dropped his arm that had the knife, and he pointed it towards us, and he lunged, he was about to take a step and lunged towards us.
Romero's family has filed a wrongful death lawsuit. It claims a series of failures and questionable findings, like a cannabis wax pen found in the front seat of Deputy Cordero's squad car, may have contributed to deputies using lethal force.
I'm sorry, I just didn't see him as a threat.
Susan Musante, a mental health expert, heard the shots from next door.
They had a new behavioral health manager, and I contacted her.
That's Diane Dosel.
It's time for a culture change.
Brought in by Sheriff John Allen to improve their response to mental health calls.
It's very clear these officers did not follow their own policies and procedures.
Emails between Dosel and the sheriff show that deputies could have requested a has flag on his address back on Halloween 2022. They didn't. While deputies didn't have that information the day they shot Jared, he was in the system. BCSO's crisis intervention database noted he had no history of threats toward law enforcement officers. But BCSO never checked that database before responding.
We're gonna shoot you.
I'll never call the police again for help, for anything.
The Romero's trust is broken.
That's what I've learned from this.
Jared is finally at rest. His family wears his dog tags.
This is 4 generations of my family that have been affected by this.
The Jared Romero shooting investigation is now in the hands of the district attorney's office. Alicia Lucero's case settled quickly for $4 million, and no deputies ever faced criminal charges. The sheriff's department says they won't comment on pending litigation. For 4 Investigates, I'm Ryan Laughlin.
See it. And my only comment on this is that I'd like to hear from other folks on other experiences they have. But I did review their policies and procedures, and they all said you don't start with guns, you start first with talking and tasers, and that did not happen at all. And then the other, I don't think this is so different from so many of the other uh, police shootings of people with disabilities that we see. And I am not sure, is Ryan Laughlin on? I'm not seeing you, Ryan. If you're here, Ryan, stand up or open up. Ryan is the person who did the story. Are you there, Ryan? Okay, so Ryan did the story. The question I wanted to ask Ryan is, there was relatively little coverage of this other than the press conferences of the police, which of course skewed it. And Ryan stood up and did what I thought was a fair reporting. But this is not the only occurrence that obviously that we have had, but to me it was next door, so I saw it. And Susan Fitzmaurice, did Patty join us?
Nope, I don't see her, and she didn't send me an email back, so I can tell that story. I mean, I wasn't there, but I know the story.
Yeah, if
So
you, yeah.
This happened about it's been about 10 years ago. So this is a young man, he's 26 years old, who had Down syndrome, who went to the movies with a caregiver. And they watched the movie, no issues whatsoever. The movie was over, and the caregiver went out to the parking lot to get the car. It was raining, so they wanted to bring the car up to the door. So they went out to do that, and then I don't know. I find it amazing that this happened so quickly. But the guy who knew that he was supposed to stay there and wait for her to come back and get him. He wasn't supposed to leave the movie theater on his own, even leave that specific theater. So they came in and they told him he had to leave, and he said, "No, I can't leave. I can't leave." And they didn't really understand what the issue was. And so I don't think it was actually initially the police. It was whoever the security guards were in the movie theater. They came in, they attacked him and had him on the ground, strangled him, restrained him, and as a part of that process, he died before the caregiver was actually able to come back and retrieve him to take him to the car. And police were called, and it was a terrible situation. It happened. If you don't know about people with Down syndrome, often they're people who have difficulty breathing in the first place. I have a son who's 40 who has not a tremendous difficulty, but if his breath was slightly restrained, it would mean a lot of danger for him. So increased danger by what they were doing. So it was a combination of not really understanding the situation that was happening, no communication going on whatsoever, a lack of understanding, too much force. It was just a terrible situation altogether. And then in 2019, they kept following through, and they wanted compensation. And finally, they did get, I don't remember how much the suit was. It was over $1 million from the theater and from the security guards and everybody involved. They were fined. And, that doesn't bring Ethan back, but at least it makes at least some people in power think a little differently about what they did and put in place some ideas that there are, how important is it that this guy left the theater on time? That he was there for the opening credits for the next film. Was his death worth that? I mean, there's no question that it wasn't. but we get so embroiled in our wanting to have control that we completely lose control and we end up killing people. So I know there's some people who've mentioned in the chat that they've had their own personal experiences with this. Does anybody want to discuss their own experiences?
I see a hand, Carolyn.
Yeah, so my question is so he was already in the system as, you know, mentally ill, correct? I mean, he was already in the system for that, like he already had.
We're talking about Jared.
Yes, we're talking about Jared. We're going to talk about my story yet, but we're talking about Jared. So he was already in the system. Did it have a notation in there? Does anybody know that he had Down syndrome or anything?
Okay, so Jared, so Ethan, which is the second person, had Down syndrome.
Yes. So
Jared,
yeah.
Jared basically had what most of us would label as PTSD coming out of the military, but Jared was a very quiet, calm person. And Ethan, I assume, I don't know that much about Ethan. Susan knows more about the other Susan. Susan Fitzwater.
So I shouldn't have said the name, but my point is they were already in the system with the police department that they had some kind of a mental illness.
For Jared Romero was in the system with notation because he had gone in a month before, and I don't know where y'all are from, but in New Mexico and Alaska, where I have lived, everybody has guns. I don't. I'm like the only one on the street, I think.
Oh yeah, people have guns.
Yeah, so he went into the sheriff's office and turned in his guns, and at some point he confessed to a crime he didn't commit, and they knew he didn't do it, so they brought him to the psychiatric hospital. So he was flagged in the system as someone who had some kind of a mental health problem.
Yeah, so I wonder.
Ethan is a young man with Down syndrome and very obviously has Down syndrome. It's not somebody who would miss the Down syndrome.
Did that answer the question, Carolyn?
Yeah, it did. It did, but I do wonder if that has to bring more force, though.
I think the point is it's supposed to bring less force.
Well, I get that, but it doesn't appear that it is doing what it was designed to do, that to make somebody aware of something. That's basically saying if you reported that somebody just had an amputation, right, then you would know somebody is, not as, they might have a prosthetic or something like that, but you would know these things, right? That they're not going to be running from you like somebody who had their full, well, maybe not, depending, right? So, but it's to lessen things and not increase force. And it seems like anytime I hear, maybe you too, that it's just another avenue of increasing problems that are harming people. Like I can't even imagine being deaf, because I know what my own situation was. I can't even imagine being deaf and then not being able to speak to somebody.
Would you like to share your situation, or?
Oh, about the police?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well,
Wait,
sure.
Can we let Eliana
get
in first, because she's got to leave?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm Eliana. I'm sorry, I have another meeting the same day on Wednesday, and I'm leading it. But so I've had quite a few encounters, unfortunately, with police, and I have my own issues with mental health. And I've actually been beat up 3 times by police unjustly. And they have caused severe harm, but not as much as the incident with my son, which happened in 2019. And we were driving back to Colorado through Arizona, and we were outside of Flagstaff, and we had a cracked windshield, and we were pulled over by a highway patrolman. And I do have a video of this too. And he comes, so highway patrol, they come to the passenger side of the car. Whereas, you know, the police usually come to the driver's side. And my son has severe autism and dissociative disorder, multiple personalities, and psychosis, and all kinds of schizophrenia, schizoaffective. Nobody seems to know, but a variety of things. And he definitely is in the system. You know, they could look him up. So cop comes around. He starts ragging on me about the cracked windshield, and my son gets a little defensive because he's in the middle. Here's the cop, I'm over here, and that's inappropriate to begin with, you know. And so he kind of throws his hands up like back off, you know. And the cop jumps back, points a gun at us, and he's standing there shaking, pointing a gun, trying to call for help. We're like on the side of the highway. And he calls for help, backup, and I find out later he's a rookie and he shouldn't have been alone. And my son is alive, just I'll say that. But anyway, we're lucky. But he's standing there holding a gun. I pull up, my son is just sitting there calmly. So I pull out my iPad because I couldn't find my phone, and I start filming. And he's yelling at me, and you know, and my son is hands in his lap. I rolled the window up because I just wanted, I don't know, a barrier or something. I just felt terrified. I had all these thoughts of all these stories like we're talking about. And I just saw it, you know, he's going to shoot my son. And so then another car comes with a bunch of cop cars. And he's like, be careful. She's got an iPad. Like I have this dangerous weapon, and I'm filming him, you know, and the highway patrol guys don't have the cameras. And this is just leading up to actually what happened. So anyway, then the cop comes to my side. He's standing there with a gun here. So I have guns pointed at both sides of us. And I hesitated like 3 seconds. I didn't just jump out of the car into his arms. Well, he grabs me and throws the iPad and manhandles me and some other cops. And then they throw me in the cop car. And then I'm sitting there, and then this guy's, the rookie's superintendent comes, and he admitted that this guy shouldn't have been alone. He said, nothing happened. They were trying to find, like, do you have a place for your son? And I'm like, no, we're just traveling home. I don't know anyone here. And so they weren't going to arrest him. They said nothing happened. Then they were going to arrest me for resisting arrest, which, you know, I sat there 3 seconds before opening my door, and it's on the video. So they arrest both of us. He has no medication. They throw us in jail, put him in isolation. He's on like 3 high doses of anti-seizure medications. He has no medication, which is life-threatening in itself. Isolation, no water, no nothing. They leave us there all night. Then the next day, the judge says, let them out, let the mother out, leave the son here so she can go get the car. So this safe place, because they took my car. They didn't. They made us wait till the end of the day. I mean, this is just how everything works. They don't care. And when we finally got out, after they let 100 people out, we were the last 2 people. They let us out of the jail. And I said, you were supposed to let me out early first. And they said, well, we don't care what the judge says. Actually said that to me. And I said, oh, we'll probably be right back. I don't know. I just said that. And sure enough, it did happen. We leave the jail. We're right outside the jail. I'm trying to call the public defender to tell her what's going on. And my son is just kind of like, he's off his meds, and he's just kind of like, doesn't know where to go. He has no safe place. And he's just kind of walking around. All of a sudden, a cop car pulls up, says, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, I need help. My son has, you know, issues. He's been off his meds, and he has mental health issues. And well, we can't help you. Sorry, you know. that's not our thing. Like, well, why are you here? You know? And I'm talking to them. Meanwhile, my son is walking away. And then all of a sudden they go right, and they were mocking him, making fun of him. They go running off in their cars, almost ran me over, chased him down. I'm running down the street after him. And by the time I get there, there's 3 cops and they're attacking my son. And as I walk up, I see this one cop just like bam, 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 like punching him in the head. And this is after, later I saw the videos, much later, the lawyer showed me the videos. They had, so what happened was he's just walking on the side of the road, and they made up all these lies. Oh, he was walking in the middle of the road. You can see with their body cams, because the Flagstaff police had cameras, and he's walking on the side of the road. They come and they surround him, right? So here's a terrified autistic person who can't communicate, and they surround him, and they jump out of their cars. They surround him with the cars and them, big guys with weapons all over him. And he's just like freaked out. And he walked up to one of the cops and just kind of like sort of tapped him. He touched him, you know, because he was like, get away. I want to get away. It's just like nonverbal communication. And they just descended on him, and they slammed. This one cop said, in the deposition, I slammed his head on the pavement as hard as I could 3 or 4 times. He said that, like under testimony. And then they took him back to jail. First, I made him take him to the hospital. They did nothing in the hospital. I heard them with the doctor, and they were just making fun of him. Oh, maybe we should do a twofer and take the mom too, and mocking. And, you know, they had no understanding of mental health. And they took my son back to jail, still no medication. This is going on day 2. And he was on a lot of medication. And anyway, so
a follow-up question is, were there any repercussions to any of this for them?
No, nothing,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. This is what happened was the public defender's like, oh, you have a lawsuit, right? She came, she was cool. She came to the hospital. She saw what was going on. She begged them to put him in the mental hospital. They refused. So I have guardianship in Colorado. I had to go to court and get temporary guardianship in Arizona. I had to have him committed. She pleaded with me because that was the only way that I was going to get him off the criminal charges. Because what they do is when they beat you up, they charge you with criminal charges. So they turn around and make it so that what you have to do is you have to battle and get this thing done, the criminal part, before you can even sue them. And she said, oh, I have a lawyer who has a nonprofit in Flagstaff, Southwest Center for Equal Justice, and she will help you for free, right? You have a lawsuit. Well, yeah, it was a setup. I realized, 3 years later, and more and more trauma and forcing me to watch these videos and going to court. And she filed like 16 different charges against the police and the jail and everything. So she covered all the bases. So what happens is when you do a lawsuit like that, every single charge, you cannot go back to court if it gets, if you don't win, you can't recharge for the same thing instead of just putting some of those things. So then what happened was we never got to court. They did a summary judgment, and the judge, instead of taking 6 months, took almost a year to go through all the depositions and everything. So it's really the justice system is so unjust. It's set against you. And actually, when I was trying to file an appeal, because they didn't do the appeal, they led me to this place, and then they just dumped us and made us go through so much. When you go to court, it's way more traumatizing than the initial trauma.
Can I ask you, what year was this again? And this was in Flagstaff, Arizona?
Yeah, this was 2019. Wait, yeah.
Just recently, 5-6 years ago, though, right?
Yeah,
Five, 6
yeah.
years ago.
It was
yeah.
right. You know, when that other thing, when they suffocated the black guy, the cops killed that black guy.
Yeah.
In New York.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I went to those lawyers for the appeal, and they said we would have taken your case, but we won't do an appeal. And so it was a real case that never got anywhere, because I think that the public defender refers me to these lawyers and they're all in on it. Sorry.
So I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because one of the things I wanted to have in this conversation was how the system. Like, it's not just, see, in some ways I have empathy for the police, because I think they're in a system that has a culture that makes this happen. But I don't have sympathy that they do these things. But my point is,
Yeah, really.
no, I don't have sympathy. But I mean, I can talk to you about this, how they recruit it here in New Mexico. If you go to their website, their recruitment website, the most prominent thing is people shooting, cops shooting. So they're recruiting shooters, not
interesting.
public. Yeah. So, but I just want to say I really appreciate what you just said, Eliana, and I think you just brought us to one of the points we want to talk about, which is, it's not just some of it's individuals, but it's also a system.
It is.
And trains. So I see a hand from Anna.
Can I just say one more thing? I just want to finish that there are trainings, and in the town I live in, Cortez, Colorado, I forget what the training is, but there is special training for mental health awareness, and all the police here are trained. And we did have an incident here, and my son kind of freaked out and went after a cop because he had all this trauma, and he went after him, and everybody showed up, but they didn't do anything. They didn't press charges because they understood. And I think we're talking about solutions is we need to get these trainings in the police forces all over the country. They should sometimes they have one person on their police force. They say, oh, we have a person. Well, that doesn't matter. You need every
the person's on vacation, probably.
Yeah, right. So we need all the police to be educated and go through these trainings. And I have a friend in Tucson who actually did some of these trainings.
Oh, okay.
I have information about that, and I can share that with anyone. But thank you so much for doing this and bringing this out, because it's so important.
And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for sharing your story.
I'm heartfelt for this. I want to make sure we've got some hands. Anna, I think you're next.
Hi. Hello.
Go ahead,
Can you hear
Anna.
me?
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so I've shared this story a couple of times. It was in Judi's room, so I've been coming to Judi's room for like about a couple of months to a year now, but so I think it's really relevant to what's being discussed regarding how the police handles mental health. I think my biggest issue is with the hotlines, the crisis hotlines, and how quick they are to call the police on you. And that's something that happened to me, and I had no idea about it. I didn't know that they did that. I was a teenager at the time, I think 17. I was on Trevor Hotline. So it's basically a hotline for LGBT youth, so LGBT children. So I was on the hotline. So I had shared that I was queer and other things. So talking to them, they started asking me questions about have you thought of hurting yourself, etc. So I yeah, I felt like that in the past. And then I stopped and I said, oh, I have to go eat dinner. So I said bye. So I left. An hour later, I got a knock on my door, and there was the police behind my door. And I was like really scared. Like I was like, oh my God, did I commit a crime? Did I say something? I was really scared. I had no idea. Like I was a kid. And then the police said, like, they came and said, oh, like, yeah, like we got like this call from like the hotline, and then like I was like really scared. It was so bad. Like this is Trevor Hotline, by the way. Like so like they out the kids to their parents. Like I'm glad I didn't have like extremely homophobic parents, but like when they do that, and it's like the police like knows it's from Trevor Hotline, and then like the parents get an idea, like it's like, plus like my parents were abusive, like maybe not homophobic but abusive regardless. So it's like part of that was like me trying to like get some help from that. But yeah, like I did not know that Trevor Hotline was going to call the police on me, and I was really scared. So the police came, they brought me to the mental hospital. So yeah, this one was like I had no choice. The police was like there, and they said you have to come to the psych ward. And so they brought me there. It was like late at night. They brought me to the hospital. Then there was no like doctor, so we waited for hours for a doctor to show up. They didn't, so the police just brought us back home. Like it was really bizarre, but just ever since then I've been like really like scared, and like kind of like it was really scary, like being a kid, not knowing why the police is at your door, not knowing the hotline just called the police on you, like, and they're not transparent about it either. And it's like this is like where like wellness checks can get dangerous too. Like that's like one of the ones I had. The other one was like this was like a time when like my mom was like, so I lived like with my mom in an apartment, and she was like really abusive, like really emotionally abusive. And like there was a time when like I was like really like badly hurt, and I was like screaming and crying, and then the neighbors called the police, and I like yeah, so at that point they heard screaming and they called the police, and like the police just came, and like and like they actually thought like it was like something like a mental health crisis. Like it was like, but I guess like they didn't really like consider like the situation. I was worried because I was like having a mental health crisis, but it was in response to like parental abuse. So like they saw that and they're like, oh, like fortunately I was like calm by that point, but like it was really scary, like the way that like ever since I've been like really scared. I think like it was one point where like my psychiatrist, this was like last year, basically told me that because I'm like manic, like I was having like mania, he said like I was about to call the police on you and send you to the hospital. I was like really scared. I was like crying. I was like, please don't do that. Like those were really traumatic like wellness checks. I was really scared and I didn't want that. Then the psychiatrist was like laughing and saying, oh, you're just overreacting. Like, oh, it's nothing. Like I'm not gonna like do that now, but like it's just kind of like very dismissive of that. Like they don't even know what it's like. These like police wellness checks are like really scary for me, like at least. I'm glad like none of them became like violent, although like with the second one, I don't know what would have happened if I weren't calm, because I was like really like emotionally like all over the place because I was like, you know, like being abused. So like so yeah, I just think like with like the way that people just call the police, they hear some noise, they don't even sometimes think, but like especially with like the hotline issue is like one of the biggest ones. Like it's just like it's really bad. Like people don't even know, it's not even transparent. Like they think they're seeking help, but then they get the police at their door. So I guess like this was kind of like my story. So fortunately I didn't experience any violence, but definitely like really scary experience, especially as a kid experiencing that.
I totally appreciate you sharing that story. It's so hard. One of the things I thought was really poignant in the video was when Martine, Jared's dad, Martine, who I've had the opportunity to meet, and said, I taught my children to respect the police.
Yeah.
If they need help, you can call the police. They're like public safety. They're, you know, and but there's a culture, and I really do want to talk about why we think this happens. And it's there's things I think that we could maybe change, but it's systematic. And I see Marguerite, you got a hand up.
Yes. I can relate to both of those stories because because a couple of years back, the Trump police shot and man 19 times. 19 times. Because he had mental illness, but they ended up suing our department. So I don't know how many millions of dollars that they sue for. But my biggest problem is, why do they have to shoot to kill? Why can they just shoot them in the leg, the arm, or the hand? Why do they have to shoot to kill them? And
Go ahead.
I had experience it with one of my brothers back in the 80s and 90s. Because my brother had he was legally blind with the called autism. Autism now. But in the 1890s, they used the R word. And we all know what the R word is. So I'm not gonna repeat it. But for me, due to my disability, they thought it was me. It was me. But my grandmother told him, no, it's not her. It's her brother. When my late grandmother told them, listen to my granddaughter. She knows more about his condition than anyone. So,
Marguerite,
the
because it's so difficult for you to communicate, do you have something sort of that you keep in your pocket that is ready to give to police so that they can that you can get across your message quickly? Or
back in the 80s and 90s, when there was no cell phone, nothing to communicate. but since the ADA was passed, now they are required to have ASL interpreters, but for me, I found an app on my phone that I use to communicate, and that is text to speak app.
But do you have anything that you can show them so that they know what they're required to do, so that you can get that message across quickly? I'm thinking, because there used to be a long time ago, and I haven't seen this in a long time, but there used to be a green placard that you could carry in your car that said you were deaf, so the police would know not to shine lights in your eyes and not to question you. But what do you do face to face? Do you have anything to help?
Wait. I do not drive. Okay? I do not drive. So what I would do is some of the law enforcement knows who I am now that I do not have any problem with communication, but I will always be prepared, because I had a service dog with me, okay? And when they see me with my service dog, they know not to touch her. But if they want to communicate with me, I will bring up my phone, or if they want me to talk with them by using my voice, I will take my time, and if they do not understand me that way, I will use my app. My app is called text to speak app. And that will allow me to text and speak. So,
Marguerite, I am so grateful that you're sharing, and I know it's hard sometimes for you to get the words out, and they're important words, and I want to tell you I appreciate that. I think we still have some hands, and we're very close to our official end time, but as most of you know, we never get off at the end of our official end time. So we always have time to come back around. How about that, Marguerite? And Carolyn, I think we ended up cutting you off, and I think your hand is back up. So
Oh, it is. It's okay. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad you have a way to communicate, really. So mine was back in 2001. And so I didn't really rectify this stuff until probably 2018. And so I was very isolated, and I was very physically injured with my right leg. And so driving has been something that has been an outlet for me. And so I've been on inappropriate drugs. I'd been on clonazepam. I think I was on Paxil, and I quit taking these things. And so months later, I found myself where I bought my vehicle, and I'll just leave it at that. I bought my vehicle, and they had an empty lot. And I had come out of the dealership at a different place, and there was like this little inviting hill that I took my vehicle on. And so I started doing donuts in the gravel dirt area. There was nobody around. This wasn't like it was in a parking lot full of people. There was nobody there. I was the only one there driving, and I was just really kind of getting a little squirrely, cutting it up. And the next thing I know is there was the police had stopped me at gunpoint that they forgot to put in their record, by the way. I hadn't slept in a couple days. I was physically injured from an injury that was probably 6 years old at this time on my lower extremity. So I had really been suffering from this. And like I said, I hadn't slept for a couple days. And what they did was they ended up taking me to the emergency room, which I thought they were taking me to the Department of Veterans Affairs, which they didn't. And so within, because I couldn't sit still because of my injury, within 29 minutes, I was put in 4-point restraints. But it basically started out with a rookie who called somebody else. And there was no consequences. Probably because it was so long ago. But there was one of the things that I have questioned is because they took me to St. Peter's Hospital, which was like, I'm just going to say a ballpark of like 6 miles away, versus like Capitol Hill Mall, which was like less than 2 miles away. And I think part of that had to do with because the police department was closer, but it automatically just became a mental illness thing. And without ever talking to me, I was stumbling over my words because I was injured. I was so tired. I hadn't slept for a couple days, on top of however long I hadn't slept before that. But it automatically, the police just decided that I was like a mental case without having any kind of physical examination, no kind of conversation, stopped at gunpoint. Like I said, I wasn't in a parking lot with a lot of people. I was like in an isolated, I was on a blank piece of property. And the police even wrote in his report that he had to remove small rock barricades to get to my vehicle. So this wasn't a harm, but they went and lied to the court and said that I was endangering other people. There was no other people around. And so I'll just say my partner at the time signed a 72-hour, which was totally legitimate. But within 8 hours and 40 minutes, the hospital is running to the court with the deputy prosecuting attorney and the public defender who's supposed to be, you're talking about the system, defending me, made a deal with the deputy prosecuting attorney and stripped me of my due process rights and locked me away for 14 days, which turned into 300 days. Okay. And so it's, what I was thinking earlier is like, how can we have so many people in the system that they say they're for care? And I think a lot of people are really for care. But I look at some of these people and I was like, there's 5 charge nurses that couldn't do the right thing when I said, I have an injury. I don't want to take your medication, which became forced injections of Haldol, of all things, for driving. And so where do I was denied hiring my own attorney. But it really started with the police. And I'm not saying anything bad about the police, but it was the police what made the police officer qualified to say that I had a mental illness and I wasn't physically injured?
I think that's like a really good point. And I really, oh my God, we got more hands, but I really do we're going to have part 2 and 3 of this, I think, because we're not even gotten into the race intersect on this, but God forbid you're disabled and also are a person of color. Just, God forbid. But I just want to support your story. I had this really good friend, my best friend, and he had a heart condition and he was having chest pains, and he went to the emergency room and ended up in the psych hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the things I recognize doing research for my own court cases and things like that is just because you have a symptom, I may have had symptoms, okay, that maybe mirrored something in the DSM, which is considered their Bible, but that's a symptom. Just because you have a symptom doesn't mean you fall in line with all that. And, psychosis is caused by drugs. Sleeplessness can cause psychosis. I mean, I don't really know that I had psychosis, okay? But it was also at the time, it was the fourth highest used DGP, I think it was a DG anyway, this insurance number for reimbursement. It was the fourth highest used diagnosis.
So I feel sorry for anybody who hasn't experienced psychosis. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, but listen, sleep can cause that, okay? So if you haven't slept in a couple days,
related. It's totally sleep related. People tell me,
it can totally.
They say my brother is doing this, and I say, how many days has it been since he slept?
Oh, then since you've slept, yeah, sure.
And they say, how did you know that? I'm like, because it just is. So I would like to. I know Al's had his hand up for a while, and we're getting really close to our official close time. But anybody wants to hang on, we always hang on. And Susan Fitzmaurice is the best at this. We're just going to hang on. So Al, I think you're next. Oh gosh, thank you, Carolyn.
Now, this is a big problem, right? What are we going to do about it? Big problem. So I was reading a forum of people who know about police training and that kind of thing. And it turns out that in police training, they are convinced that they're constantly in danger. They're constantly in danger. That's a focus of the training. You understand that you're constantly in danger, and the priority is taking care of themselves. In the training, your priority is to take care of yourself. It's not to help other people. It's not to, prevent crime. It's to take care of yourself. That's a priority. So that's one of the problems. Second problem is that people really believe that people who are experiencing what are called mental illnesses, they really believe that people who are experiencing mental illnesses are dangerous. The general public believes that, even though the research tells us that they are not more dangerous than other people. But everybody believes that people in that state are dangerous, are more dangerous. And it's just a false belief,
They're conditioned. They are conditioned to believe that. They are conditioned to believe that.
So here's your other big problem. If you believe that people who are quote unquote mentally ill are mentally ill because of a brain disorder or a genetic problem or a biochemical imbalance, if you believe that fundamentally they're broken, which is the conventional wisdom, 95% of the people in this country believe that. If you believe that, you believe people are broken. And when people believe people are broken, they treat them badly.
Oh.
There's been very interesting research done on this. People did research, they described people with quote unquote mental illness in two different ways. One description was they have a brain disorder, chemical imbalance, genetic, they're broken. The other description was that they were hurt. These people were hurt. They were traumatized. They were abused, neglected, made to feel inadequate, dishonored, discounted. And that's the reason that they are experiencing what we call mental illness. Well, and then they had some way of having people react or talk about how they would treat people. And it turned out that when people believe that people are broken, they treat them more harshly and not as carefully than if they believe that they're basically experiencing what they're experiencing because they've been hurt, made to feel inadequate, dishonored, et cetera, et cetera. So, this idea, it's not what's wrong with you, what's happened to you, right? But the fact that people believe that this is physiological actually makes it more likely that they will treat people badly. That's the situation we're in. I don't know what you do. I mean, it's a big problem. It's a big problem.
Al, this is important because now you're talking about some of the systemic issues. I think we're going to have another session on this. What's wrong with, not what's wrong with the system, but is there anything we could actively do, you know, to change?
Well, you know, de-escalating would probably be a good start, is de-escalating the situation instead of escalating the situation.
I think we need to de-escalate the people responding to the situation.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm talking about. Yes, we need to de-escalate things instead of escalating things, because in my situation, it was the rookie, because these were training grounds in this particular area, called his boss, okay? And so, but there was no crime or anything. I was never arrested, and I was still stuck in a police car handcuffed. Yeah, but it was instantly considered a mental illness. Crazy.
Yes, well, we like to do that. Not me, but you know, the system. So I really want to do another one of these. And anyway, I see April's had a hand up for a while, so
where's April at?
And if I may.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Al, I got a question. Did you remember I was telling you that I was trying to get body cam footage from the police officer in Stark that accused me of having a gun in my mesh backpack? He never acted like he was taking that seriously, and he had tased a couple other persons before believed to have mental illness. And I've been trying to get that body cam footage. I've paid for it. I've asked multiple times, multiple means. I don't know if you've ever checked the Google Drive file I've made available to you, but it happened back in November, and I'm starting to believe that I'm never going to see their portion of the footage unless somebody helps me or something, because they told me that they had the footage that had been redacted. This is how much I paid for it. I paid for it. I don't know why it was redacted, because I was never charged with a crime. And so far as I know, that the only people that were, well, not people, but the only things that was hurt in that park was me swatting the horse flies from my legs. So I was trying to sleep. So I'm trying to get that information, and I haven't gotten any of it, not even the unredacted video that I've paid for. I don't know if anyone is interested in, you know, there's so many capacity issues. I'm not saying it's a high importance compared to like people getting electroshocked or something like that. And I wasn't hurt, but I think if we have time to talk about it, I don't know if somebody has time to help get the video, because other people have been tased, other people have been Baker acted by that officer in the past.
Okay.
And he was praised on in the media for using less deadly methods.
Al, I think that was a question to you. Do you have a response? And then we have another hand.
Yeah, April, I'm sorry. You know, I really don't remember receiving that. And if I'm sorry about this, but I didn't respond in any helpful way, you know, April. So that's all I can say. I don't really recall getting it. You sent it to me, right? So
I'll resend you the email.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and resend it to me, please.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, April.
I'm gonna mute myself again so other people can talk, because I think that a lot of people have more relevant experience, and I just kind of want more data to be available on this particular police officer.
So I'll just add, it's really hard to get the records, but they're public records. And we have like Public Records Act, you're supposed to be able to get them. I didn't even know you're supposed to have to pay for them. So that's shocking to me in and of itself. But I do want to, Karen's had her hand up for a little while. Karen, you had your hand up.
Yes. I just want to respond to the what do you do about it? I think that there's usually there's more than one answer. I don't think one size fits all. So I don't mean to like speak for everybody, but I'm speaking for myself here. And I just want to say that my experience is a little different of how I come into this, but it is about violence prevention for me. And what I bring to it, what I've done is I did a study, a research, and I did a workshop on the history of psychiatry, psychology, and women with domestic violence. And why I'm bringing this up is because women as a group were thought to be inferior in history, and they were considered emotional, and they were immediately considered like, disrespected. And there's been a lot of change for women in that regard. And I think that what they've done might be something that can help this group. I know it's different. There's a lot of differences. But I still think that what they've done, because the beliefs about women have changed from that time when they were just considered emotional, not rational. Men were rational, women were emotional. That was history. So if you're emotional, you're, it was in the media too. I also study the media. And so I think there's a lot of different things that can be done. And I think it's on, instead of trying to change instead of trying to change men, women took actions. So I'm saying, instead of trying to change the police, I'm not saying this for everyone. There's some people that's going to be the right thing to do, but I'm saying that, creating something for media that makes it different, which I'm seeing things, and also taking actions, like women organized about the violence and use the term domestic violence. Sometimes it takes new language, it takes another term, something to create something to say we're rational people. We're not just emotional people. What everybody has been saying is, it's a belief system, and it's about who we are as being human. And no matter what problem we have, we still are human. So, and I think there's a lot that we can do. And I've been doing my piece. So I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
I appreciate that. And as I said, I
One of the things
want to
that
hear stories, but I always want to hear what can we do to change them? I'm sorry, Susan, I didn't mean to talk over you. Go.
one of the things that I've done, I have a son who has dissociative identity disorder, and most of his identities are nice people to get along with, but he does have a few that are difficult, disruptive, angry, violent, etc. So I have something I keep in my wallet, and I have him keep in his wallet, that describes what happens when he's like that and how to address it. Because I can't, even if police were trained, I can't expect everybody to know how to address him when these things happen. And they're not always going to get to his wallet and find this piece of paper that says
Well,
what
that's
to
what
do.
I was wondering is how if I can, how are they going to, I mean, that's not the first thing that they're going to do.
No, it's not. But at least somewhere he knows to ask the police to look at it. I know to hand it to them. At least it gives them something to distract them for a second. Say, this is how you deal with this. Because a big piece of it for my son is he needs to be addressed by his name, because his name is his core identity. And the person who's acting out badly is not that person. And so what you need to do is reach his core identity. And so what I have to do is get them to be calling him by his name. And so it's important to know what his name is. And I can shout that out as much as I want. And people, I mean, I just find police don't listen. But if you have something prepared on a piece of paper and you hand it to them and it looks semi-official, they're more prepared to actually take a step back and read it before they act further. And I've had at least one occasion where it's worked perfectly. My son and I were at an open market, and he got very upset at me, and one of his alters came out and he started to hit me. And I told people, it's okay, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. But we were surrounded by police very quickly. And I had this in my wallet, so I handed it to somebody. I said, read this, read this, read this. And somebody read it while the police were still trying to restrain him. And that person was able to intervene between me and the police, and my son and the police. So getting one person to know what needs to be done that's other than yourself, because they don't listen to family members who are telling you this is how you can, get the situation under control. We're looked at as, an enemy, equal enemy as the person that is having the outbreak.
So how do you get people to listen? Because it's almost like some of, even in my situation, it's like everything fell on deaf ears. So how do you break the barrier to just snap somebody out of, you're not listening?
I think Marguerite has a hand up.
She does.
Maya.
Go ahead, Marguerite.
I am a member of the round table here in Detroit, and the state of Michigan has a round table of everything from law enforcement to social worker to mental health issues, and we get together and find solutions. And if your city has a board of police commissioner meeting, we have one every Thursday. And that way we as a community can ask the board of commissioners the question or make comment at the meetings. So if you guys have a board of police commissioners in your city, in your state, or in the community, please get involved. It will help. It may not hurt, but it will help. Communication goes a long way. I'm done. Thank you.
And thank you. So I'm not actually seeing hands, but we still have folks. And I wonder if anybody has stories they want to share, or also talking about things maybe we could do to change the meter on this one.
Has anybody been involved in any actual training of police?
Yes, I have.
Yes, I have as well.
Yes. More than 7 years did a training session with the Michigan Police Training Unit. Two years in a row. So please get involved.
So are they doing it every year? Once a year?
Every 2 years.
Well, we did it two years ago, but
2 years ago.
this year we did not do it.
Anybody else want to speak to training they've been involved with?
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm in a support group, epilepsy support group here in Madison. Well, I've been in it for 30 years, and we had the police department sent several people over to our group to discuss this issue, because sometimes these tragedies are people with epilepsy. And so they sent officers over, and we had a good talk. We had good karma. I don't know what they do on an ongoing basis. Maybe I should ask our leader to check with them again and see if they do training, this kind of training.
Wow.
That's all.
I haven't, but I'd like to.
Peter,
Yes.
you've had such long experience with the Epilepsy Club. Is there any historians in that club that know the long story of epilepsy in America with the camps and everything back in the 30s and 40s?
With the what? The what?
The epileptic camps. They had 8 camps around America, and so
camps. Oh goodness,
yeah.
no, I
But
didn't know that.
historians-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a deep history thing from the community, and I'm working with the Smithsonian on the Disability History and Culture Museum, and I just want to take that opportunity to change the subject and everything. But it was 1920 to 1955 before they found the vaccine.
Wow.
They used to ship them off to concentration camps, more or less, out in the woods. I know your region, they all shipped them up to upstate Michigan. Was
Wow.
one of them, and that, but anyway, it's just another story of oppression.
Have you got a reference where I can read more about that at all?
I found out about it when I was interviewing the director of the Michigan Epileptic Society.
Oh.
And so she would be my primary source for the one, and I was just wondering if there was one in Wisconsin or that, but because I know there was one in Minnesota, there was one in Arizona, and it was just like what they did with the Indians, re-education, separate the devil from the flock. Was the strategy behind that, because up until the vaccine and even after, for decades, the stigma was possessed.
Uh-huh. A few years ago, I came across a book in the Milwaukee Airport Library. It's called War Against the Weak, and it's a thick book about the history of eugenics, and Wisconsin was a eugenic state until pretty recently, really. And that was fascinating to me about forced sterilizations that they used to do.
You remember the author's name?
Edwin Black, Oregon's the Week,
you.
Edwin Black.
We'll put it in the archives or make sure it's there.
Okay,
Because we're
good.
building it's a 10-year project, but we're building a youth leadership forum history day mentoring component into it for this summer. And so
Oh,
giving presentations at the 15 youth leadership forums around the country and giving them
Why don't you guys share your email addresses and connect?
well,
okay.
nonetheless, thanks, Susan. And anyway, that's one of the stories that we want to have the young people investigate for History Day in their backyard.
Cool.
But that's how we're addressing change, is just through story and History Day projects and youth leadership forums and getting young people digital literacy skills to create digital stories in a nutshell. So back on topic. I put some links in the sidebar, by the way.
I don't think that's off topic.
Okay, well, I put some links to our newsletters and our meetings and invitation, and I put it in there about 10 minutes ago. If anyone wants is just to know that it's going on. A newsletter comes out every month, so it's kind of interesting just to do a read for disability culture.
So just here's what I want to say why I don't think it's off topic is because we talk about solutions and changing the culture. We need to bring the young people in. We all keep talking to ourselves, and so I think that's right on. So I don't really think it's off topic. So
yeah, I'll put a couple more links in the chat box right now to just for those that are interested in reaching out to the young. We're going to be getting mentors for the kids from youth leadership forums. There's about 1,000 young people with disabilities that participate with them across the nation. And the whole objective is to have them create at least one per chapter of the 15 that are producing. And then they create a youth leadership forum film festival every year on subjects of their choice. But then we find mentors for them that want storylines or support storylines, introduction to community archives. So if you're into history and paying it forward and that, stop on in.
Okay, so we're getting pretty close to way over time. Not way over. We've gone way over. But we're dwindling, and I'm just wondering if
it's only 7:50. You still got 10 minutes.
Okay.
I think you're in the wrong time zone.
No, I thought it was an hour and a half, and we're almost at 2 hours, and sometimes we go 4. And we're dwindling. I give you that, Susan. So you're in charge from here on in.
Okay. Sounds fine to me.
Yeah, traditionally the room doesn't close until the last one speaks. So
I'm not trying to close I'm not trying to close the room. I'm just saying we're dwindling. That's all.
People can stay on as long as they like. I'm not going anywhere. I always close the door after everybody leaves.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marguerite.
You're welcome, Susan. My next question is, if you guys want to be more involved in your community, please check out your own civic active meetings and your board of commissioners police commissioners meetings. Go go to the city website and and look at the dates. Please get involved.
Hi. Hi, sweetie.
All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I said interrupted.
I need to go eat.
Okay.
So, thank you. Remember, peace, love, and hope.
Absolutely. See you soon, Marguerite.
Mm-hmm.
So does anybody feel more comfortable speaking in a smaller group and want to say something? Hi.
Hi.
Do you have something you want to
Hi.
talk about?
I don't know if you're talking to me. I didn't want to speak over someone. I joined late and this is my first meeting. I just wanted to introduce myself, and I've had a response from the police when I was experiencing a mental health crisis, and I got sent to the mental hospital, which I call the loony bin because I feel like it may help destigmatize it. And yeah, I'm just here to learn and figure out how I can help.
Well, welcome. We
Thank
meet
you.
the first Wednesday of every month, same channel, same time.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
And you're welcome just to hang out and listen, participate. If you want to speak about a particular topic, you can always let us know. We're always open to new ideas about what to talk about.
Awesome. And what's like the main, I guess, like goal and intention of these groups?
Actually, the main intention is have a safe place for people to talk about issues that are important to them. And most of the issues that we talk about are ones that people are hesitant to talk about openly. You know, that there's a lot of shame and stigma around some of these issues. And hopefully this is a place where people can share their stories and don't, and feel unashamed to tell them, where someplace else they might feel like they can't tell the whole truth. Here,
Mhm.
hopefully they can tell the whole truth and they will be met with understanding and support.
Definitely. And I guess one question that I have that I've been trying to figure out as I've been involved in some different groups with mental health crisis response in New York is there seems to be a lack of younger individuals who have gone through these experiences. And from the friends that I've made in the hospital, I mean, it comes back to the stigma. I'm just trying to figure out how to best engage more people, because I feel like the more people with the lived experience that speak up, the more people could potentially listen.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Well, that's part of the reason why this is always open. And one of the things, the pattern that I've noticed is that the young folks in general don't speak up during the first hour. The younger people speak up later. And that's part of the reason why I always leave the room open as long as people want to talk. Because it seems as if I'm not sure why, but it seems as if those that are I don't know if I can specify an age, But I don't know, the under 35 crowd seem less open to talking in front of a larger group. Their comfort level is only in a smaller group.
I guess for me personally, well, I didn't talk because I was late and I was just trying to kind of take everything in. I guess for me personally, sometimes I get intimidated by some of these groups because it's often filled with like lawyers and these psychiatrists and professionals who just seem to have a lot more knowledge on this stuff than me. So I'm often in learning mode. But I guess I'm also thinking it's hard for me to even get any of my other friends to even show up to these kind of things.
Well, we do have psychiatrists that are involved. We do have researchers, that have come on. We have, we've had a few people come on that aren't as supportive as we'd like to see. But then we have others that are very, we have lots of regulars. We have lots of people who are here every single month, and we come sort of a family. We recognize each other when they come on. We may not know each other anyplace else, but we know each other on Wednesday. And if you come again, hopefully I'll recognize you and say hello. Somebody else will recognize you and say hello, and it'll feel like you're coming back to some place that's friendly versus going into an unknown space.
Definitely, I will be back. I appreciate you.
And if you've got a friend who wants to, you can always come in and say whatever name you want to say. You don't have to identify yourself by your own name. You can use a pseudonym if that's what you feel more comfortable with. People don't have to speak up. They can just participate by being here. Everybody's welcome, however it is they feel comfortable being a part of us. And sometimes people visit 3 or 4 times before they say the first word. So you're very brave to speak up the first time.
I have a super random question. I don't know if it's relevant, or if anyone has any answer. But basically, I'm curious if there's, from the way I've experienced this stuff and some people I've talked to, it seems like there's a particular correlation between people getting sent to the hospital more frequently who are of a particular cultural background. And I guess if this is true, which from what I'm seeing seems to be a common theme, in terms of the way that police respond, I'm trying to reconcile how some of that could be taken into account when there's situations where it's a parent's word versus their child's word. When I have a friend who's been sent to Looney 15 times in their life, and I'm convinced that, while they have can have the certain intense personality, these trips are not warranted. And apart from that person getting further damaged and further hurt, it's also taking up beds for other people, and it's just an inefficient use of resources. I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense, but I'm just trying to understand the situation.
So Alex, Susan here, I want to say one of the things we want to talk about here today and also in the future is what I think you just talked about. And we didn't talk about it today. We talked about police and disability, but we didn't talk about the intersect with socioeconomic, color, race, all that stuff. And to note the video we showed, if you were on for the video, the man shot up was a Hispanic male. And anyway, I'm hoping we're gonna do, I hope you come back, because I know I hope Susan Fitzmaurice is in charge of this, but I hope we can do something that talks about the intersect between, I think what you're talking about is like, yes, we have intense personality, and then if on top of that you have disability, and if on top of that you have a brown skin, holy cow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss? I know you had a
Well,
lot more to that point, but I do think that's something to be talked about.
yeah, so I mean, there's definitely that, but I guess what I was referring to, more specifically with this situation of my friend, and I only bring it up because I have a different friend who just started a training yesterday at a hospital in Boston, and he pointed this out to me, and I thought it was fascinating. On his first day of training, he noticed this because it seems to ring true with the situation of my other friend. But essentially, this person is Muslim, and they have extremely strict parents, and it seems like they're overreacting to this individual who just doesn't necessarily abide by their parents' rules in the same sense, and are just calling the cops in a very unwarranted manner. Which, when the cops do come, it's very hard for someone who may be dealing with some stuff already to not react in a particular way, which then is interpreted as, this person needs to be sent in, and it's just they're escalating the situation instead of de-escalating the situation. I mean, this person called the cops themselves to tell them that they got sexually abused, and the cops came, and instead of talking to them, they like immediately took them in. Yeah.
No, I hear you.
Carol, you want to make a comment? Carol, you said you text me you wanted to make a comment. Do you want to make the comment now?
So to answer you, Carol, we're not hearing your voice. Are you muted?
No, she's not muted, but for some reason she's not coming across. Do you want to write it and then I'll read it out loud?
And while you're doing that, I want to respond to Ellis. See, this is one of the issues. When you're a younger person, parents have jurisdiction, right? Parents aren't always on it, and then sometimes parents are, right? And I don't know how we mitigate all of that. So there's no real answer.
Yeah, and that's even with someone. Hi. That's with someone who's 34 years old, but they're still living with their parents, so they still have a certain lack of jurisdiction. But yeah.
But they probably have financial or economic control if they live with them. It's like, yeah.
Exactly.
So there's no real answer. But I would love to explore these more, because I think, I just think it's all complicated. And I was so glad you shared. Thank you so much.
I'd just like to respond to Alex.
Go ahead.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I've been dealing with different groups and prevention of violence, because I think calling the cops is a step that happened. It's become a pattern in families, but it has to do with not being able to address the problems within the family. So I just want to say that when you're looking for someone, it starts with one person, so don't be afraid to take the initiative, and usually groups start with only one or two people. So that I would just encourage you, if you find one other person like your friend, to start talking, and then see where it can go, because small groups can sometimes be much more productive than larger groups. And the other thing I want to share is there is a tradition coming from psychology and different places in society about dealing with parents. And so even though what your particular issue is, it's, again, to me, it's part of a tradition with violence, the way I see it. So you might not understand it that way, but I got a lot of help through ACOA, which is this started with understanding alcoholism, and then ACOA was adult children of alcoholics. So they address the parental relationship. And I think if you plug into that, you might find some things, because they do deal with families, not just, it started with children of alcoholics, but when they have meetings online, and it's just, if you have a situation with your parents that's not is dysfunctional or whatever. So it at this point there's a lot of different things, and I've always found with myself is, if I can't find exactly what I need, I can go to some group, and then from there I'll meet somebody in that group, and then from there it takes me closer to what I'm looking for. So I would suggest, there's books and things. So there is a tradition about, and I know what you're talking about. I've been watching this for a couple of decades of how it's, how it changed. Like I said earlier, I dealt with the history, and how it changed, because it used to be that children were supposed to be obedient, and nobody cared about mental health. And so there was this change that came about. Now we care about mental health, but the behavior problems that come from that generation of being obedient as a child interplay in there. And sometimes that clarity of understanding how the obedience idea is still underlying, and then there's confusion. But that's what I have to share. Thank you, Alex, for bringing it all up and being here.
So Carol posted her comment, so I'll read it so everybody can hear it. I think that New York State controls the younger clientele very tightly. I saw how controlling they are with my teen daughter, who is now passed away. A doctor of an upstate residential hospital said that some of their patients have committed suicide after discharge from their place. No wonder. New York State is too regressive and toxic, drug-centered. The toxic drugs are terrible for the physical health of young people, and I'm convinced that what causes the suicides of those who come into contact with the psych system. It's very terrible for young women. All children should have access to functional, holistic medicine to improve their physical and mental health. Before any consideration of psychiatric medications, which often cause more problems. The anti-inflammatory lifestyle needs to be taught. I'm not familiar with the anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And as for your question in chat, I don't know specifically of any, but I will ask around. what you might want to do is look beyond the patient rights movement into the one movement is called the what is it called? Supportive decision making. And that's where people admit they may not be fully capable of making their decisions independently, but it's a movement that sort of an individual person can authorize another person to help them to navigate the system, and that designating them as a person that helps that can be withdrawn if you no longer like that person's support. But if you need support in navigating the system, then this person is sort of authorized to be a co sort of navigator with you.
Sorry, what was the name of that?
Called supported decision making.
Okay, thanks.
And in some states, it's actually they have rules around it. You know how to have a designated supported decision maker. So if you have a person like my son has a disability that's such that he really can't make decisions independently. I would like him to be able to, but the reality is he can't. So what happens is I present him with options and then help him reach the right decision for him. Usually it's one I agree with, but I have to admit he doesn't always agree with what the right decision is. So ideally, as somebody who's your supported decision maker is somebody who supports you where you are at, not where they're at. So we got two more. Let's see. Are you in New York City, Alex?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I keep seeing familiar sights.
Yeah, Upper West Side.
Yeah, I used to live on 100th Street and Riverside.
Yeah, I grew up on 98th in Brooklyn.
Hello, everyone. It would now be a good time for me to speak.
Sure, jump in.
All right. Let's see here. Yeah. First, I guess thank all of you all here. There's a lot of wonderful ideas here and wonderful hearts. Let me think. And let's see here. Or down some ideas of some things I want to mention here. And yeah, one thing was that on something like this, it could be like it could be hard to talk about such a complex issue with like so many things going on here. It seems to me like the root cause for me, it's like so much, almost all of our society, just so much of it, and like, including the police there and psychiatry, like was mentioned there. But like I've just been following the world here, and there's so many problems, in my opinion, there. And yeah, one idea that I had was like just like when we were thinking about like the optimistic, hopeful possibilities about and like some people mentioned like there are some like I'm not sure it's like good people, but we're people who's like behave right now. They're like in the system that they're in a place where they're actually trying to help, and they do a lot. They actually do help a lot, and if you can work with them and get on their side, I've had a lot of success. It's still very hard, and maybe I should mention some of my story here. Just like I've had some personal experience there with the police and some discrimination with neighbors on LGBTQ issues. This is even here in Rochester, Minnesota here, where I moved for one of the safest, it was so dangerous down in Florida. And, but here there's still the mixture of the people, there's some people that are very horrific on these issues here. And unfortunately, I have some neighbors right down the street as well that are on the other, like, very amazingly heavenly, they're like looking out for me. I'm just walking around here. I walk everywhere I go. I don't use motor vehicles. I had a very special day today with animals. I care about them so much, and but I just wanted to mention them. However, I'll go back to this though. So I was just walking this one particular way. I didn't realize there was a neighbor down the street that was very scary, and this heavenly neighbor down the street, she had got in her car and she kept an eye out for me, and then like maybe a month or so later told me about this, and but on some of the other issues that are like my neighbors across the street, for instance, like they had a problem with my hair, and they were, this is going back before they even knew I was transgender, and the person there made a like a comment about the, like, it was just rude, but it was hard to figure out. It was kind of like a disguise, but I just sort of left off that was there was a message directed at me, and then the husband even apologized a few days later, saying my wife could be something like a bad word there, but I don't like to mention there, but so it was confirming that I was like also I was perceiving things correctly there. Like she would have the right to determine what style of my hair would be, right? And but all that that's like in the normal territory. And there's this big problem with normal here. I could go on and on with and it's just as speaking on this, like problems pop up as they go. Speaking of which, like with psychiatry here, like on that's the thing on their checklist, right? It's like you jump around, or you have to be very careful with those. And they might say I would have racing thoughts at a moment like this, but there's a lot of problems. I think I'm thinking relatively clearly here, but it's very scary being in those places. And then like so fast forward a few more years on with those people, then they start to learn that I am transgender, and well, because I do start to a transition, and but also like wear a pink dress outside. And then okay, so I had two things this past year, and like maybe a little change, a little extra, where they would call the police on me for things like wearing a pink dress in my own front yard, just gardening and things like that. In my gardening, that would be unusual because in this world, people are they put poisons on their ground. But like glyphosate is a known poison, right? That's in people's food as well. In fact, so they call me the crazy one. However, they're like there's a myriad of issues. Like they're the ones stopping all an ants without thinking about it. They're the ones that put with Mayo Clinic, it's supposed top hospital has glyphosate poison in their food. And so I'm talking a little bit quickly here, and sort of apologize for that if it's hard to keep up. And sometimes in the system that could be used against me. I'm thinking very clearly here, and I could share my accolades, all those awards, things like that I've done with school. And I don't like thinking that way. I think anybody could. There's just somebody like if they got poison out of their food and all those things like this, had wonderful helpers. They could cheat like great scores on like SAT, like a basic math. I don't want to bring this up usually, but just to but as a slow reader, because like the TV was always on, and I could do much better, and just like something you could pick up. And this is trying to relate with everybody. And I think like Einstein says, everyone's a genius. And I really like Jesus Christ, I would say schizophrenic. That was a huge idea that just on like I'm thinking about Martin Luther King Jr. here. Somebody might say what just occurred to me, if I were fully honest, like in Jesus Christ spirit, just thinking about Martin Luther King Jr. brought in some more, say, components of that individuals being are all these spiritual things. Sometimes it could come off in a by the way, just psychiatry, like if I say something like shaman, right? You say like a magic word, and it could invoke all these wonderful, like the same thing. Just like, oh, and that their culture or something, that were indigenous, or say going with the flow, something like that. It is a huge problem thinking of things that way. Now back to Jesus Christ here. So thinking, imagine it's for that person, individual person that being here. Just thinking about the animals here again, but we're alive today, all right? And so you think you're the child of God, literally, okay? Like no father. You get magical, immaculate conception. And there's things in the Bible where there's a contradiction there. But this is one of my favorite people in terms of lessons that I learned from just the hard out there. I just listened to Martin Luther King Jr.'s that sermon, and I would recommend that to everybody. Just today, it was given on February 4th, 1968. There were a few speeches after that. He died on April, I can't believe 4th, I believe it was. Just also some other things recently about that. Florida Scott King was like doing some more speeches right after there. Very great, like with the sanitation that's used back in the those type of, like all the stuff. If you put this history bit together, like these people that are like thinking about history there, I think the youth there, it's wonderful ideas. I think there's a lot of promise there, and I remember I wanted to contact that person whoever said like share email addresses and connect. That is a very wonderful idea there. Very apropos, and I was thinking about that today with like Marcus Aurelius. I love thinking about these wonderful heavenly beings there, and there's a wonderful history lessons there, and just asking like, why do I like these people? Yeah, why do I like Marcus Aurelius? Well, he had all this power and he cared about others. Okay, and just for one reason. And I'd like to know more about the person, but and then Jesus Christ. And a few years ago, not that many, I was actually in a moment of like one might say mania or schizophrenia or something like that, and I'll get kind of jumbled in there, but in a very like heavenly form, a divine form, and I could you might love to know this that back in a long time ago, they actually had similar issues like this like with Socrates, and somebody like his friend Phaedrus asked him a question about madness is all a bad thing or something like that, and he said no, but like their ancestors, like those who created these ideas, the word mania. This is not even in the Oxford English Dictionary, by the way. I didn't look that one up. It appalled me so much that I turned it upside down, just as a signifier to me, et cetera. But
you've done an amazing amount of research.
Oh yes. I've thank you so much there, and like I just willing would love to just share that and then help out as many beings as possible here, and yeah, if you have any. Just feel free to chime in there and ask me anything. I could like sort of jump around because there's just so much going on there. And what was it? Yeah, with Jesus Christ, just thinking about the person with the checklist there. So like delude, and this would I think if we were in a trial, by the way, like anytime somebody said schizophrenia, just to sort of like to undo some of the brainwashing, all those horrible associations, just bring in some heavenly ones. So you're gonna say schizophrenia, like I say, like Your Honor, like all those things on the TVs, right? And the powerful propaganda is and things like that. Maybe you just introduce to people like Jesus Christ. May have just get like
some of what you're saying actually sounds very similar in some ways to what Carol has written in chat.
Yeah,
because she said some of us have depression because we have poor gut health and are inflamed. Inflammation will cause depression. Poor nutrition can cause symptoms of depression. Infections, sleep problems, low vitamin D3 can cause depression. So going back to our ancestors that you're referring to, I mean, they led a much more back to nature lifestyle where inflammation was not the huge issue I think that it is now. So I think the two of you actually, reflect upon some of the same issues.
Oh yeah, and that's yeah. Those are wonderful comments, remarks there, in my belief. And I wrote down here like the idea of like holistic came to mind, and then like diet and food diet and ancestral, just so and like back to nature lifestyle, but thinking about like, evolution, like so the environment to which we evolved for billions of years, and then only relatively recently they're like with food. Okay, they're at the chemical level, and there's so much more below that, like nuclear stuff and quantum mechanical stuff. And I think I majored in that and was like outperforming the MIT. I just wanted just to but I stopped because it's so dangerous there, and they do treat how they treat animals and things like that. by the way, there's like no, well, like you don't get the letters after name if you do something like that, right? And I was just in there for like trying to help out with people. I don't like bragging about it. I think everybody's like can do that sort of thing. And but like there's so many problems like you and all those things like that they got, but they don't even test for good or you're good or evil, right? And like Nazis with the Holocaust there and like the MD. So only, but there was a huge problem there, and it never really stopped, in my opinion. There, if 1942, 1947 or something, right after there, in the American Journal of Psychiatry, the American one, the psychiatrists are right in there. You can look at this. Peter Breggin mentioned one of those, and I saw the other one by in some of the research I was talking about there. They're like saying things like taking the long view and like who's going to read out things like that. The American one, right at like during and right after World War II. Okay.
Carol, did you want to say anything further? If you type it, I'll read it out loud.
But yeah, back to Carol, just real quick, like that. Just like, think about the consequences with billions of years of evolution. If you, I think that is a good idea, but and then taking out of your like this natural environment. I think it's like an octopus taken out of its like humongous sea or ocean or whatever, and then shoved into this little aquarium. And there's some scientist guy out there who's like how much they've been hearing about, but like with humans, we don't even know like what our actual natural divine whatever we've evolved to for all this time, and then I think it just causes so many problems. And I'll like maybe Carol speak here.
Hi, JP. Love.
Oh, hey.
Love your name, JP.
Oh yeah, thank you so much.
Love.
Yeah, I'd like to get it legally changed. Sometimes it's just like it's hard to do that sort of thing.
I have a question. I just put it in the chat. Do you channel your force into creative outcomes such as poetry, images, or maybe even prompting AI and seeing what it kicks back? Because I think just throwing out prompts through your stream of consciousness could give our new generation of thinking a run.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, people heavily generated ideas, and I actually do think outside the box very much on a heavily generative lifestyle, and yeah, like poetry, images, like sort of art, create thinking about some ideas like that today, and
I think it'd be a great way to tell your story.
Oh yeah, and
I've been playing with AI for the last couple of years, and it's just off the hook, spooky.
Oh,
you know, you feed it something and it feeds you something back that makes sense of what you fed it. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I actually did try that once. Just very careful. I try to be very careful with that, but
well, I highly recommend it.
I was communicating.
Go out there and there's an empath one out there. The guy spent $1.3 billion on this computer, and he's training it to be an empath, and it's called Pi. And all the other big ones are getting all this press and everything. But I've been playing with Pi for the last couple of weeks, and it's pretty fascinating what it comes up with when you just put in the randomness of consciousness. If you know what I mean.
Oh yeah. Is that called PI, like the number?
Yeah, Pi.
3 letters.
Pi.I. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. I think I just Pi.ai. I saw the guy on a podcast. I said, "Oh, I like this guy. He's that's his priority. It's he's training it to be empathic first, which is pretty cool."
Yeah.
Carol,
Yeah, I know.
Carol wrote her note.
Beautiful.
I will have to leave. I don't have much to say at this point other than that preventing inflammation in the body supports mood and thought. Also teaching peaceable ways of communicating, etc. are helpful. Promoting urban gardening is good too.
Oh, oh yeah. And that goes back to what I was talking about. I'm appalled by what they serve at the food that they serve at the hospitals. And I think if you go back, like, food is so closely related to medicine. They knew that millennia ago with Hippocrates, right? It could also do no harm. You could get these things going. But I want to bring it. I don't know how to do it, but let's see here. Oh yeah, but just the abundance of food. yeah, one time I was working with one like a therapist here in a very like, collaborative way, just looking at all the good characteristics there, and she mentioned to me that like somebody down in South America asked like, "What do you do with all your excess food?" Because down there they have these trees with fruit just that just drop mangoes all over the place. They just don't know what to do with it. The real ancestral food that's actually really good, like matches up to perfection, down to like way below kind of, and like just like whatever's going on here. Okay, that's my way of thinking about those things. But let's see here. So, but we could have like, I started to do that myself here, and like with some dandelions coming up, and that's just saw a new maple tree that sprung up just today, and it might take some like decades for those to like the huge maples to get to right. But in any case, there's just so much nutrition there. I've learned about spelt bread here, and I had some Monarda seeds that it's just they're so abundant. They don't even have that type of good food. That's really good organic sections. You can just it grows like a weed, and if they even call it, well, those are the things that they call weed. They're actually medicinal herbs. Some of the best things, and that could solve a lot of people's problems. Just getting that information out there, and I think all for free. It reminds me of like Jesus Christ and John the Baptist. Some like that.
Carol wrote in, yes, I love the dandelions and like to saute them. Let's see. I planted some clover.
Oh,
and
clover.
then and Alex says, I have 1% battery and outside my phone dies. Pleasure to meet you all and greatly appreciate you all for the care and efforts. And Carol says good night.
Right. Good night. Oh, yeah. There's some which plant? Oh, what kind of plant is that one? Beautiful flowers.
Those are obviously from your garden, aren't they?
I think you're muted. We can't hear you there. Oh.
Karen, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I think I'm a little fading here. I think I was gonna sign off.
Okay. I'm glad you were here.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here. And all right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, JP.
Bye.
So I think the Susan who's here that I put host behind isn't actually the Susan who is the host. I think that might be another Susan.
Yeah, I think that that person maybe left her screen on or something. The computer on. It says above. There's a comment. I have to scoot. Thank you all. As probably maybe for Susan there. Oh yeah, that looks beautiful too. Feather there and something sacred.
What's that in your hand, Scott? I can't see it. Too blurry for me.
Your audio is muted, I believe, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. This
Oh, yeah.
is the story stick. Let me unblur the background so it focuses. And that's what the flag is made of. About 720 of these, 12 feet high, 20 feet long. American flag of feathers.
Huh.
And it travels around to various places. Since you're into feathers, I'll share my screen if I can. But let me find it first. I'll show you the flag of feathers that I made. 12 years ago. Let's see. First got to find it.
Made you a co-host so you could share your screen.
Yeah, let me see where it is. Story flag. Let's see if there's one there. Okay, share screen now. Stand by. I'm blind, so it's, well, low vision. Not blind yet. On my way there. Share screen. No. Share. Let's see. Standby. That's me behind the flag of feathers. Let's see if there's a, there it is. It's 12 feet high, 20 feet long. Travels around. And that. And then let's see. If you go over to here, where is, there's the exhibit, standby. Those are all feathers, story sticks, and pictures of people with disabilities. Then that's how it looks like. That was in the Portland City Hall. That was at a blind festival in Eugene, Oregon. This was at an April conference. There's that spooky group. Mixed bag of lollies. Those are all the independent living centers in rural America. All the Crip Skimps and Bongos in the backcountry. And they converge in Vegas. And then here's like Geraldo in front of it. This is in front of an independent living center, the first one in America, in Berkeley. But anyway, and then let me just show you one more in the feathers. I'm really into feathers, my man. My lady, me, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like
I'm
worrying
66 years old, so I get all twisted up with the.
I don't like worrying about
pronouns.
this. Yeah, just,
Right.
so for me, that wants to, yeah, I think like the soul stuff there and some of those things. It's like I'm not sure exactly.
And
Some people do prefer, but but I never mind.
Let's see. Where? No, standby. I'm lost my own site. Third flag exhibit, legacy preservation. Shoot. I'm missing a page. It's a tutorial, how to make your own story stick. Let's see. Huh. Oh, be informed, baby. Story stick tutorial. There you go. All right. So I'll put these links in the chat for you, these 3 links.
Yeah.
But there's I don't know, you know the story sticks. They're from Native American culture for conflict resolution. And as long as you held the story stick, no one can interrupt you. But after you were speaking, you had to pass it along. And it would go on for sometimes days or even weeks between tribes and conflict resolutions until everybody in the circle or everyone in the conflict agreed upon the peace. And so it shows a step-by-step anthropological. I did a documentary on Pomo Indians way back in 2000. So I hung out with them for 9 months and they taught me how to do this stuff. So it's all blessed by the Pomos of California. But the whole idea is listening, listen deeply, tell stories. And so let me just put this one, since you're into feathers. And they're really easy to make. You just walk outside your door and find found objects. Let's see. What am I looking at here? I'm looking for the chat. Okay, I'm sorry. When they put the share screen. Oh, there it is. They switched navigation bar around.
Oh yeah, and I had a question. So is the chat going to be available on MindFreedom International's website after this?
Eventually, I'm not sure when.
Oh yeah, great, great. And
There
my-
you go. Let's
Yeah.
see.
It just
Carl Dallas entered the waiting room. Carl Dallas is in the waiting room. So I
Oh,
looked in.
Oh,
Someone showed up late. Someone showed up late.
Carl, you missed us, but
Hey.
we're still here.
Oh, you gotta ask on mute.
Carl, did you have a story you might want to tell about your own experiences? Is that why you joined us?
Oh. I just noticed that, so it might have been on your side for a while, Susan.
Hmm?
I just noticed it when I was stopping the sharing the screen tag that he was in
Yeah.
the waiting room, so he might have been back there a while.
Well, he
Yeah.
might have moved away from his screen now because he waited too long.
Yeah.
That's why I don't use waiting rooms. I don't like waiting rooms. Let just people jump in.
So do you spend a lot of time on Zoom, JP?
Let's see here. Not too much, but I've been getting more into it with just starting to volunteer here with the MindFreedom International every Saturday. Loving that. And then I love these every try like the beginning of last month's one. I accidentally missed that one, and I tried to find that online, but I was wondering, do you think you'll be able to post that one? It sounded very interesting to me there. There's somebody with close to Laura Delano and that website there.
Oh, look at the kitty. Carl put up a kitty cat.
And Carl's mic is not working. So you want to say anything, you can just write it in the chat and I'll read it out loud. We've had a few people with problems with their mics tonight.
Yeah. She's got about 3 more seconds. Uh-huh. Yep. She doesn't last long. I woke her from her nap.
Oh,
Okay, this is from Carl. Sorry, my mic is not working. Thank you. Yes, diagnosed with a rare disorder, crazy in mental court here in Michigan. Oh, I'm in Michigan. Which court, where in Michigan are you involved? Okay. So Mason is outside Lansing, so the capital. So are you aware of Mind Freedom's Shield program? You might want to look that up. I'll see if I can give you a link for that. So are you needing any kind of specific support? That's okay. We're winding down, so you can take over. Let us know what you need. So what are your housing issues? Are you homeless at present, or poor quality housing, or what's your issue?
Yeah, while you're typing there, Carl, Susan, and Scott there, maybe I'll just try to wrap up my story there. This past year with the psychiatrist, this happened twice there, and where they called the police on me, one time for wearing pink dress, the other time for wearing, maybe I had a crop top on, and I was short in these days for people with my similar anatomical features, but long by the other people's standards. So for clear discrimination there, like 7 or 8 inches long swim briefs. But now on that occasion, they didn't even tell me why they taking me in there. Like, well, I had no idea what was going on. It freaked me. It scared. I was just out there gardening in my own front yard, and then my neighbors maybe lied or had a false belief about me eating mulch out there. Okay, and and maybe they saw me eating dandelions. They didn't know what was going on with that, or who knows what. But the police up here are much better than some other places. Even though I did see just some grimace or facial expression type of thing from one of them, but scary, But the other ones, I thought you could tell that they wanted to help out. But on that occasion, one of these with the swim briefs there, they didn't even say like, well, this is because of your shorts. They believe maybe underwear or something, but it's just like it was just like I wear like more like a natural type of person, so it's like organic cloth and like it's even undyed, so it's like white. So maybe it had a look like that, but it's like longer than the basketball players just like a couple decades ago, and not doing anything inappropriate like that would be harmful to anyone. Just like out there just gardening, getting sun, wonderful environment. I think of these things. I actually like would be like nudist. I think the sun's wonderful. I feel like go out there in my back in a closed area, the fence to get sun on body for wonderful. And most people know the sun feels wonderful, and the cat is there. I know that they like that. Like by the way, there's no problem with other all beings besides humans with nudity. I think covering up causes all these problems. But back to my story to wrap it up. He's taking me to psychiatry, and then on that last occasion, one of those, I was smoking marijuana at the time, but actually heavily just things were coming from it, just thinking outside the box and like wonderful ideas about like contract law problems with that, insights there, and property law, and just helping out with that, the animals. Just maybe this like telling like some neighbors that down the street about these, like trying to care about animals and teaching some children nearby with like they were like about gardening and caring about the plant. They were like, oh, I mean, there might be animals in there, and I don't think about the plants, but just doing it very respectfully. It's just like a lot of very heavenly way. There's like a lot more. Just seems to be like with this is going to like what's going on here, and these like it's like well, some people what do they call that one thing when they go like a spiritual retreat or something in ayahuasca, stuff like that, and so you take some magic plant, then but even if you do these things without that plant, again, like dream state. I just have so many ideas about how to like like the same thing. It's discrimination if you already have a label, right? Same thing, and then it's terrifying in there. And on that occasion, it did like sort of had to disconnect from reality. So, but after they did all the stuff and they didn't even tell me what was going on, And fortunately, I'm a very nonviolent person. I don't do anything to harm anybody ever. But I tried to get out of there while I was in there. I was just terrified. I mean, I didn't have false belief, but I didn't know what's going on there. It's like, that's not supposed to happen. And so they put me in this state where like, it's just, they violated me so much. They never said, like, sorry. Or anything.
Well, JP, people don't realize there's a million different species right out their front door. Living and grooving, just open the door.
Oh yeah, I think like every.
I had this one girl. She had an episode where she started off in LA, and she talked to butterflies and caterpillars, and woke up 6 months later in New York City, having no idea how she got there.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a road trip, huh?
Oh, yeah. I wonder what happened there and all the details there. I'd love to hear that, and maybe some.
Oh, yeah. It was on tape because that's what I do. I do video histories, and she took about a 10-minute story about the episode of what she recalled from it, and she was in a micro state of mind for 6 months before that cold New York rain must have woke her up.